I think our role is to talk to everyone and to have that conversation, to hear concerns and to bring people back to the commitments and frameworks that they have agreed to and committed to. We will do that through a combination, I think, as you would expect, of private discussion and advocacy, pushing and challenging on some of the trickier issues, but also speaking out publicly when it is appropriate to do so and to amplify key messages, very much as we are doing in this conversation with you today.
We do engage broadly and regularly with those involved in this process, and we take on board concerns. We share them broadly as we converse with various individuals who are involved in implementing these elections, and we'll continue to do that. Many of these conversations take place privately, as is the custom in the kind of work we do, in the diplomacy that we do, but other conversations take place publicly as we're doing right now.
Colleen, the US signaled it will be reconsidering support for Danab following its participation in Crenwelge conflict. Are you following up on this matter? What steps, if any, will you be taking?
Our review of our support to the Danab is ongoing. We provide training and support to the Danab to advance our shared objective of defeating al-Shabaab, and we want to ensure our support is being used appropriately and in line with US policy. We continue to urge, speaking of the Crenwelge conflict, we continue to urge Somali government authorities and al-Sunna to engage in dialogue to peacefully resolve the conflict. I think further dialogue is necessary. We would not, under any circumstances, want to see any further fighting. That would only worsen the humanitarian situation. Already the humanitarian situation is dire. It also would distract from the critical priorities of completing the elections and fighting al-Shabaab.
Somalia is fast sliding into severe drought amid donor fatigue as aid agencies report limited funding. Could you highlight interventions the US and the UK are taking to save lives?
So firstly, I want to say this situation is deeply concerning. Back in 2011, the last time that Somalia experienced a devastating famine, I was actually working for a humanitarian agency providing on-the-ground support to Somalis who were displaced from their land and in need of food and water. So I have seen firsthand the really direct consequences of these continued failed cycles of rain. And I've heard very much over the last couple of weeks from partners from the Jubaland administration. I've seen the pictures of what's already been experienced there and the scale of livestock death. So I think we have all learned from previous crises here, particularly back in 2011, and again some of the challenging situation that Somalia experienced in 2016, 2017, which is where we had seen a very similar pattern of failed rainfall. We know what works. That is everyone responding early to the indicators that we have seen rather than waiting until we see large numbers of death. So that's why I want to welcome the statement last week from the Prime Minister declaring the state of emergency for the drought situation. It's critical that the government is able to focus resources on it here, both at the federal level but also in member states. I think on the part of donors, we're very much advocating within our own systems and helping to amplify the situation in Somalia globally. As you say, it is a challenging global situation and it is imperative on all of us to raise the profile of the crisis and the challenge of the months ahead. For the UK, we're working very closely with partners such as the US, such as the United Nations, to also make sure that we're refocusing some of our work here. So that's us activating crisis response mechanisms that we've got in place in many of our humanitarian programs, which were specifically developed, building on the learning from previous crises here. We're assessing how best to increase our support and how to reprioritise other programmes. And we're absolutely committed to using all of our resources, be that humanitarian funding, development funding, as well as diplomatic support and the engagement of people like myself, to really support the response here and to ensure that the needs here in Somalia are heard on the international stage.